So, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, Dex, can you go a little bit more into the detail? What did that look like for you when you were dealing with those anxiety attacks or whatever, what was happening? What was actually happening in those moments?
It started with
Hey man, what's up? This is Kev, man, and
Tanya.
hey, we here with another episode of Couples Connect. We got an amazing couple for you guys tonight, man. So please, man, without any further delay, man, let's get into this thing. We got the one, the only, Mr. Dex and my girl, man, Kandis Reese in the building. Hey, man, welcome to the podcast, guys. What's going on, good people?
Thank y'all for having us. Honored to be here.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you guys for being here.
Absolutely. We're excited, man, just to get a chance to chop it up with you guys, man, and hear your story. You know, since we recently connected with you guys, and just from that short amount of time that we've connected, it seems like you guys you're both have an amazing testimony, things that you guys went through in your marriage, and that you had to be a support system for one another. And we can't wait to get into it, man. But hey, we kind of know you guys, man, but our listeners may not know exactly about the amazing Team Reese. So tell them, guys, man, who you are, what you got going on, how long you've been married, kids, what y'all do for a living. Man, let people know what y'all got going on.
Yeah, we are Team Reese. Last week we celebrated 8 years together.
Yeah, man. All right.
We have 2 sons. They're 6 and 4. And, we're pausing on the multiplication right now. So we're being fruitful, but we're not multiplying right now. We put our foot on the brake a little bit.
Okay.
But we met in 2008 and then reconnected in Dallas in 2012. And so grateful to have her as my bride. I work for the Dallas Mavericks. I work for the Mavs Academy. I do camps for them. And I also work for our local church, Stonegate, as a connection associate for them.
Good deal.
Yep. And I am a business owner. So I have a production and live event company called O Productions. And I've been doing that for 8 years. So we'll get into how that even got started because that was a part of our marriage story.
She's a beast, y'all.
He is too. Don't be fooled.
People pay to sit with his brain right here and just
that is true.
Let it make complex things simple.
I like it.
His too, though. He can just remember like facts. You know how people know the year that a war happened and like who was the president and the general? He be knowing that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah. Were you a bookworm, Dex?
Yeah, I love to read. I love to read.
Yeah.
Words and create pictures in my mind, create memories in my mind. And I love alliteration and communication and metaphors and all those things. So I definitely enjoy a good book.
For sure.
Yeah.
Good deal.
And I just finished my first book in 5 years last week.
Did you really, Kandis?
For real, because I have not, when we were friends and dating, I used to read a lot. And then once we got married, it just...
No, because once we had kids,
that's what it was. Because we used to read our first year of marriage, but we had kids right out, we had 1 year married, they had kids. Once we had kids, I have not read, but I just finished a book because I started a book club. So I had to.
Oh, what book real quick? What book was it?
We read Church Girl by Dr. Sarita Lyons.
Okay, I've not heard of that one.
It was really good. It's really good.
Okay, all right.
It's supposed to be a book only for Black women, but she was dropping gems for me too.
He was listening to the audiobook. When I was trying to catch up, I played an audiobook and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go back and listen to that chapter."
Nice.
Good deal, man. Well, hey, man. So check it. So we met recently, right? We connected with you guys at a couple events. You guys are putting on some amazing events. Y'all the production company, doing some cool stuff, man, out here in the area. This is one of the events, man, made history. Yeah, Rhythm and Roots, man. I'm representing today. So that was a phenomenal event, man. Had an amazing time. But Tell the people, man, a little bit about some of the people you guys have worked with, because y'all have done some pretty cool stuff, man. This ain't like no startup, like, you know what I'm saying, like Crackerjack box business. Y'all are doing some big things with some big names. So go on a name drop, girl. Throw a few things right there.
I hate name dropping.
Oh, just say it, girl. It's okay when someone asks you though.
You might have to do it for me because I'm like, there might,
Yeah.
Okay. See, he's struggling to do it too.
Oh, but okay. If
Yeah.
I guess, for us, we really value people.
There you go.
We respect the platform and we recognize the influence, but we really care about that person's mind, that person's heart, that person's family. And we don't fanboy or fangirl. I think I'll be really excited to meet Mr. Denzel Washington, but like outside of that, say, how you doing? You're even the best of men are men at best. We're all human beings.
For sure. For
so
sure.
we don't.
Yeah, so they'll have to go to the website or like check our reels.
Give on the website.
I do show oproductions.com. I do show like a highlight of each year that we've done projects to show the work that we've done. It's just really weird being like, yeah, I worked with so-and-so and so-and-so. And
yeah.
It's on the website.
But you know what though? That's pretty awesome that you guys feel that way. You know what I'm saying? And that's how you guys view it and that's how you look at it, because I think I would probably be the same way. I wouldn't want to kind of let that be the front end of my business and how I kind of put my business out there. And it's respect to the artists, right? To the people that you guys work with. So I can respect that, man. That's good that you guys look at it like that. Hey, I work with people, you know what I'm saying? And help them with try to help them to fulfill their dream, their vision, or what it is, and kind of make it a reality. So I like that, man. That's good.
I also think it's part of your success too, not to go around saying who you work with and all that kind of stuff. I think it's also part of your success.
Yeah, man. So tell me this. So let's get into the beginning. How did the production stuff, right? Because I think Kansas and I kind of talked a little bit, and then we brought Dax on the line, and we was telling me y'all story, like even how it begun. Let's kind of start there, with this episode. Kind of go back in the beginning of how you got into this production world and this production company, and how you guys made it to where you are today.
Yeah. So it started. I'll just say the backstory is I started off coming straight out of college. I wanted to work in music. And so my goal and all of my energy was towards music business. Like I worked with an artist management company while I was in college. I did the radio station while I was in college. And I had a lot of friends who were music artists, recording artists, musicians. And so I was focusing all my efforts on networking on the music industry side. And was making good progress. I made a lot of friends, knew some people that were working at labels, knew a lot of artists that had deals and stuff like that. I interned with a tour promotions company they were doing international tours for like big gospel artists. I will name drop Tyler Perry because I don't know him, but this tour promotions company was doing Tyler Perry plays. And so I got to intern with them and got to know a bit more of the music business. And then I decided when I graduated from college, after I worked for a church for 2 years and saved up some money, I said, I want to move to Nashville because I figured if I wanted to be great in that industry, I either needed to live in New York, Nashville, or LA. And I'm a Southern girl. I'm a Southern girl. And I was like, I love visiting LA and New York, but I could not imagine living there. And then I also was used to a certain standard of living, and I'm gonna be broke if I try to go to these big cities with no job. So I ended up going to Nashville. I had a big sister there who worked in the industry, said I could live with her. And so I lived with her and her 2 little girls who were 1 and 2 at the time, and thought I was about to like find my big break, work my way up in somebody's label or something, and nothing panned out. I would get meetings with labels, even asked to put together proposals for different projects, and then nothing would formulate. So eventually I started running out of money. And at the same time, I started having health issues. I didn't know what it was at the time, but like I wasn't able to keep food. I wasn't throwing up, but every time I ate, it would come right out. And I started losing weight. I was weak, low energy, didn't know what was happening. And so one night I was at a friend's house. She was out of town, and I went to her house just to get away because I was living with a 1 and 2 year old. So, I needed some quiet. And so I went to my friend's apartment. She had given me a key because she traveled a lot. And I knew she was out of town, went to her apartment, and I just laid on the couch and just asked the Lord, what do you want me to do? Because I'm sick, I'm broke, nothing's working out. I had never been broke before. And I know a lot of people have lived that life. I have been graciously afforded the opportunity to avoid a lot of broke moments. A lot of people realize it's a privilege. So when I got to that point, I was rationing gas, like if I want to go to church on Sunday, I can't go anywhere starting Tuesday. So I can make sure I have enough gas to get to church on Sunday. I had never had to live like that. I have to figure out what can I cook one day that can last me for 7, so I'm cooking big pots of noodles and stuff like that. So it was a good experience for me because I think, it broke me out of my protective shell that my parents kept me in. And it taught me to go to God in moments of desperation instead of calling my dad or my mom and asking them to fix my problems, so it grew me up a bit. And so in the midst of that prayer time on my friend's couch, I heard the Lord tell me to apply to a specific television network back home here in Dallas and, apply to be a producer. And I was like, I don't even know what that means because I wasn't looking for television. Like I'm thinking music industry. And I knew nothing about making TV, what it took to get into the industry or anything like that. And I just thought it was crazy and random. But that night I went on their website and they had job positions posted for producers. And so I applied and moved back home. Hadn't heard back. And I was home for about 6 months, just doing in and out odd jobs. I did graphic design. I was living back with my parents. And 6 months after I came back home, they called me and asked me, was I interested in the position? And I said, what did I apply for? I didn't even remember what I did. And so they told me, you applied to be an assistant producer. We'd love to have you in for an interview. And I said, okay. And so I went in for my interview. And I was basically called back every week for 3 months. I freelanced with them every week. And then after 3 months, they offered me a position. They said, you're not good enough to be a producer because you still don't know what you're doing, but we're willing to train you. And they brought me on as a production assistant, audience coordinator. So I was doing all the scrub job, running errands, trying to get people in the seats for the shows, and then eventually worked my way up. So within 3 years, I went from production assistant to assistant producer. And then I skipped over associate producer and became a lead producer, where I was managing a full live show that was live 3 days a week. It was a flagship program for the network that the owners of the network were the host of. So it was a big responsibility that I got to really quickly, and then did that for 3 years. And I had watched other producers, female producers particularly, try to be a mom and a wife while being a lead producer. And I had decided early on, before I even got to that point, that if I ever became a lead producer, I wouldn't want to be in that position and have a family, because I saw the wrestle and the struggle of trying to balance, getting their kids picked up if something happened on a show, or now we're scrambling, or, hey, can you bring my kid up here? And then the kids are just sitting in their office for hours while they try to fix stuff. So I had already decided, and that's a good point to make, of like setting your intentions early, ahead of time before you get to a situation. So you already know what the move is going to be. So I already knew whenever I get serious and get ready to build a family, I'm not going to work here. So, I thought I was going to get to work there our first year of marriage, but the Lord said, nah, it's time. So the way it all panned out was my last day there was on a Friday, and we got married that Sunday.
Wow.
So,
how long were y'all dating within that time? Because I think you skipped clean over that part. How long were y'all dating?
Okay.
So Genesis of that?
This is debatable.
All right. Well, I'm Genesis. So
always debatable.
So in 2008, I was a tour manager for 4 gospel hip hop artists, And either our first or second show was in Grand Prairie at a church, and happened to be at the church that her father pastors. And she was the reason we were there because her godbrother was one of the artists. And so I met her that day, thought she was really cool, thought she was neat, thought she had a really unique voice for a lady. And I kind of saw her kind of just being a quarterback and coordinating things. And that was it. And so I added her on Facebook. This is before IG. And she didn't confirm me as a friend. She just didn't confirm people like that.
I left him sitting because it'd be people just, how people just try to be in your business.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know who this is. So if I don't know people on Facebook, I just leave them sitting there. I don't want to be like declined because if I end up meeting them in person, then I can go back and be like, oh, you are in here, But
so it's so nice.
Yeah, I left him just sitting in there.
Yeah, she messaged me and she said, I recognize you, but I can't place you where I know you from. And I must have been amazingly confident as a young man. I famously said, either my star player game wasn't on that day or girls in Texas are just slow. You met me at the concert. I'm Dex.
He was so real. I have screenshots of this.
Wow.
It's still on Facebook. Facebook don't delete nothing.
So then, y'all, she left me hanging again because 4 years later, I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky. That's where I was living at the time. I was still an undergrad when I was doing this job. And so I acquired a job in Dallas, Texas, summer of 2012. And I hit her up and said, hey, do you know any good churches in the area? And she said, what do you look for? So I sent this whole comprehensive, complete list of preferences and non-negotiables. And she left me on red again, said nothing.
Because, just make me sound rude. You got to tell the reason. Because I was dating someone and me and someone had arguments over people in my DMs that were like brothers to me that I had known since I was kids, since we were kids. So I was like, I don't know this guy. I'm not about to argue with my boyfriend at the time over somebody I don't know. So I just had to leave him hanging. So
basically, y'all, she left me hanging. So I was a sheep without a shepherd out here in Dallas. I'm trying to find a good church. I can't get connected because she don't want to be a bridge builder.
Grown man.
He a grown man. He a grown man. He can find his way.
I was a sheep without a shepherd. So that was July. And then in October, these artists are having a concert at UTA. And so I happen to go, and me and a guy go into the suite where the artists and their families are. And she happens to turn around and see me. She recognizes me. And she comes up to me and she said, are you Dex Reese? And I said, yeah. Are you that fake girl from Facebook?
You didn't ask me. No, you said it. You said, oh, you that fake girl from Facebook. Back.
Love it. Oh,
so, but moments later, I get her number and we go out on a mutual outing with a mutual friend we found out that we had, who spent some time at the church I was at in Kentucky. He was from Dallas. And so we went to Buttons. I don't know if y'all were here with Buttons.
Ooh,
that was the spot. Buttons. Man, R.I.P. Buttons. That was so good.
I know.
Buttons was a good time. So,
that was our favorite spot to eat at, man. Yeah.
That chicken and waffle.
Yeah. So we did that. And then we were friends from 2012 through 2016. Why were we friends that long? Y'all probably want to know.
No, I think that's good.
No. Wait. Like, so
because you want to give the clear time.
Okay.
All right. So 2008.
Okay. This is me.
Met in 2008. Then I moved to Nashville. Then he came. Then I came back. Then you came here. Yeah. Moved here. That's 2000.
So we reconnected in October 2012. And then November 2012, I come to her house for Thanksgiving dinner, meet her whole family. We have a great time. And
then 4 years of friendship.
So I would say within like 2012 through 2013, both of us were very intentional and very guarded. We wanted to protect our hearts. We wanted to protect each other's hearts. But one of the things that was challenging about that was she tried really hard at doing that to where she suppressed who she was around me. So from a distance, she would seem like amazing and super cool and neat. And then when I get around, she would like...
I was shut down.
Shut down.
But here's why though. Okay. Because I knew he was my husband.
Mm.
And I didn't want to influence his timeline or his pace or even his choice, because I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to be his wife, but I don't want to manipulate the situation to make it happen. So I was like, let me fall all the way back so he does things his way at in his time, if he so chooses, because he still had the freedom to choose somebody else. And he had options, because girls, look, they try to stake their claim on the slide. So like they would come to me and say stuff like, "Oh, I don't really give with white dudes, but Dex, he fine." Like kind of side comments would happen all the time. Or be like, be talking to anybody? Oh, I would talk to him. Just stuff like that. Just trying to, So I would just listen, like whatever. But in the meantime, I'm having dreams. I had a couple friends that had dreams. Just showing like he's my husband.
But Candace, how did you know, so that instinct that you had, how did you know that, that he was your husband to fall back? I hear that you're PK's daughter, right? So
Mm-hmm.
was it because of all the lessons and all the, the sermons you sat under, that
And
kind of stuff?
teaching about relationships. Nah. So one of my best friends, her name is Reva. She's great. She and I have this motto, and we always say, if ain't nobody else gonna grow, we gonna grow. So we just have this commitment to getting better and maturing and learning and growing. And she introduced me to a book that I cannot remember the name of it at this exact moment, but it basically was about guarding your heart as it relates to males and females. And so, women have the tendency to fantasize and romanticize and create all these hypothetical scenarios that may never happen. And so she, in us reading this book, it challenged us to stop daydreaming and look at relationships for what they actually are and not what they potentially could be. So with that, it taught me, like, he has not said anything. He's not made any clear intentions towards me. So at this point, we are just friends. And until he verbalizes something differently, we are just friends, because I can't make up this whole romantic relationship in my mind that doesn't exist in real life. Even if everything is pointing towards him being my husband, it doesn't matter until it actually materializes. Well, I won't say it doesn't matter, because it did matter, because it changed the way I interacted with other people. With other men, I had an option to date somebody else right before he and I got serious. And I just felt like, let me not entertain this situation. And like it helped me to protect myself in that regard, where I wasn't just like, oh, let me see what's happening over here. I wasn't trying to play around and just talk to anybody. So it did help me make those types of decisions, but it also kept me from, entertaining thoughts in my head that weren't a reality.
Wow.
That's good.
That is really good, because you had a really good sense of reality, what relationships are like. They're not this, white picket fence stuff that I was reading about growing up and how I imagined it would be, and then you get to it and you're like, well, this is not what happened. This is not, such and such. I didn't have that realistic, thing about relationships. So that's really good. Kudos to you guys for that, because I was reading the wrong book.
Yeah, and she was older. Like, so Reva's older than me too.
You reading those same books?
Yes, I was reading Zane and all of those other.
But like, yeah, I was hanging out. So I was in high school hanging out with college students. So I got to mature a little bit quicker, because they would let me. I was the only high school person they would let hang with them, but they, they really helped me out because they love Jesus for real, which was great. So
that's good.
Okay, so let's get into this thing. So now y'all didn't got to the point where you Dax probably made it known that, hey, I really want to pursue this thing and make it a real. I'm ready to move. What did that look like for you, Dex? To really say, you know what, let me quit playing around. This is my girl. Let me move forward with Kandis.
Yeah, and I want to be transparent, because I had a conversation with her sister recently, who's an amazing woman, single woman, desires to be married. and she's just tired of the men out here. And I wanted to share with her, I'll share with you guys what I shared with her yesterday. I think for me, like I wasn't in the streets, I wasn't in the sheets, but I had paralysis of analysis. And I think I was so afraid of making a bad decision, I made no decision. And I think for me, I think there's this idea of options you can see. And then with social media, it's like there's all these other options as well that aren't really options, but it just seems like the menu just gets wider and wider of who I could possibly pursue or build with. And so I think that was one of the things that really held me back a little bit. But I remember one day I was on the phone with my father, and I was growing and thinking like, man, Kandis is the best female I've ever met. She has the best character I've ever seen in a woman. And my dad, when you talk to realtors, they always mention that one word 3 times: location, location, location. So he did this for relationships. He said, Dex, it's about character, character, character. When he said that, I was like, it's Kandis. It's got to be Kandis. And so shortly after that, I called her, asked her what I thought was our first date. If a dude is putting money down for everybody, that's a date in my mind. So I called her. I said, "Hey, look, there's a movie coming out called Straight Outta Compton.
Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah. I said, I love watching movies and talking about them afterwards. Let's go to the movie, and then we'll go to dinner, and we'll talk about the movie."
That ain't what you said.
Okay.
You
What did I say?
Would you like to go to see the movie, and then we could talk about it afterwards? Oh, I guess we're doing a homework assignment.
Go to school. Right out of school.
I didn't know that talking about it meant over dinner. I'm thinking like, what, we gonna sit in the parking lot and talk, or we gonna sit? It wasn't made clear to the point that I even said, because he said I got the tickets. Once I said yes, and he told me he bought the tickets, and I said, okay, cool. Let me know how much mine was, because I'm like, I'm paying you back because this ain't
right. This ain't a date.
Sister said it's a date. Remember?
Yeah, my sister did, but she didn't read the book.
I was to say, I read the book. Yes.
Oh man.
With a date. So I was like, he said, watch the movie and talk about it. I don't know if that qualifies.
This ain't a date.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we went. We had an amazing time. We had great conversation. It was really good. And then my world changed. I started battling something that I'd never experienced before. And I thought it was going to rob me of her, but God was very gracious. So I had never dealt with anxiety before, and I was experiencing it and didn't know what it was. At the time, I was around individuals who the theology of the guys I was around, the leaders I looked up to, I think the theology was very black and white, and it didn't make space for the gray. And so there were some things that were said in that time frame, like, well, you must not have faith if you're dealing with this. You must not be a believer if you're dealing with this. You might not be chosen if you're dealing with this. And it really, I allowed that to influence me in this downward spiral. And it was a challenging time. I don't know where you want to enter in with that.
Yeah, I mean, it got really bad. So he called me. It had already started happening. I didn't know. So he was kind of already dealing with it by the time he engaged me in the process. And so he would just say, I don't know what's going on, but I don't even remember how you described it. I just knew something was off. So I would just spend time with him because he didn't have family here. So I would just go over, check on him, make sure he was okay. And then it got worse and worse. I don't know if you want to share how bad it got.
Yeah, I mean, we went to Kirk Franklin had an album release party. I forget which album, and we went to that together. And I had a really hard time being present. I had a really hard time enjoying it, but I couldn't ascertain what was happening, mentally and emotionally. And I just remember I started to not sleep, and it was like multiple days. And I'm praying and I'm quoting the scriptures and I'm fighting, that way, asking for prayer, and I can't get this to stop. And so I end up, having to go back to Kentucky to try to get back right. and get my bearings and figure out, what is happening to me, what is going on, what is my responsibility in this. And my biggest concern, my biggest scare was I don't get to be with Candace no more. That was my biggest fear, my biggest concern. And I was dealing with so much regret of, man, I don't know what this is, but this is probably for sure robbed me of being with Candace, the best woman I ever met, the most characters I've ever been around. And man, this thing done, taking that opportunity from me. That was in my mind. And so I, reached out to her one day and I called her and I said, hey, would you like to come, visit? And then
Yeah, my friends were like, this is why he in Kentucky now, for context. He is no longer in Dallas. He is back in Kentucky trying to get himself well. And he asked me would I like to come visit, and I said yes. And my friends were like, what are you doing? You don't know this man. You don't know his family. They in Kentucky. You cannot go to Kentucky. Give it go. Like, my friends were charging me up. Like, this is crazy. Why would you do this? And I was like, I don't know. I just feel like I need to go. And so they were like, well, give me the address, give me your flight information. Like my friends, we don't play about each other. So I gave them all the info and then I went to visit him. But before I got there, the Lord had already started, I guess, equipping me, giving me the grace for it. Because I didn't know what it was. At the time, we didn't have a label or a name. We didn't know what to call it. We just knew something was happening. That's all we could describe it as. Something's happening. But one thing I did in preparation, the Lord had me get a Bible and highlight. I know some of the scriptures were about peace, some were about life, anything from Genesis. I literally went cover to cover, just highlighting scriptures related to truth as to who he was and what God said his promises are in his word for his people, as it relates to healing, life, and peace. And so I took that with me on that trip to Kentucky. And we had a good time. I was only there a few days.
So go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, Dex, can you go a little bit more into the detail? What did that look like for you when you were dealing with those anxiety attacks or whatever? What was happening? What was actually happening in those moments?
It started with started losing sleep. I started losing weight. I started having less and less of an appetite. The Bible says anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, and I really started to feel weighed down. I was always a very initiator and a leader, and I was very successful in my job. I was working at SMU. I worked there for 5 years. Did a great job there, and just all that was like I had a hard time thinking. I had a hard time kind of managing thoughts and words in my mind. I remember going to my job and it was hard to read emails. It was like hard to focus. It was hard to concentrate. And it's freaking me out because I was so literal about things. The Bible says, the Lord gives his beloved sleep. And so I'm reading that and I'm like, but I'm not sleeping. So am I not your beloved? And I'm wrestling with these things. And then what happened is I think because I'm a strong feeler, some would say I'm an empath. I feel deeply and my feelings start to go. And so now that's kind of foreign to me. And I'm wrestling with a lot of just concerns about my spiritual life and my spiritual standing. And, concern is makes my heart hard and have all these concerns. And my mind is just racing. It's like I can't get it to stop. I can't get it to slow down. I'm going to the gym. I'm trying to wear myself out. I'm coming back to the apartment and I still can't fall asleep. So it was super scary. I couldn't really tell. It wasn't an immediate overnight thing. It was kind of like, I guess, a slow kind of fade, kind of a slow drift into this. And
yeah. Do you know what happened? Did you ever get a diagnosis, or did you ever figure out what happened that brought on
Yeah,
these anxiety
at
attacks?
that time they said, "Hey, this is some kind of anxiety disorder. This may be, a major depressive disorder." And I think a lot of it was, in Proverbs that juxtaposes two things, two experiences. One says, "The desire accomplished is sweet to the soul." We desire something, we pursue it, we achieve it, it feels really good. And the thing that is juxtaposed with is it says, "A hope deferred makes the heart sick." And so I think there were some hopes that I had that weren't achieved, and I felt downcast because of that. And I think I allowed my words and my thoughts about things to be stronger than God's. And so I started putting a period where God put a comma. And so I started assuming I'm not going to marry this woman. I'm not going to get the next promotion. I'm not going to get the job I really want. I'm not going to be able to do this, that, and the third. And I was dealing with just feeling downcast. And, I was believing a lot of lies. I started agreeing more with lies than I was with truth. And I think all that played a role in getting me to this really dark spot emotionally and mentally. And then it became a physical thing.
So you lived more in the future than you lived in the present moment at that.
Yeah, and I think that's how anxiety starts when we try to hold on to things that don't belong to us,
Mhm.
like the future. It's a downward spiral, and a lot of times people who deal with anxiety, they deal with control issues. They
Mhm.
deal with, fear issues and worry. And, A.W. Tozer once said the most important thing in life is what comes to mind when we think about God. And I think my view of God was off. And so I didn't see him correctly. So now I'm not thinking correctly about certain things. And my world has got very, very dim. Um, and I didn't know how to get out of this pit that I was in. And so, for a time I went to Kentucky. She came to visit. Had a great time. Did you come twice? Came one time. And I knew and,
She said,
she
"Mm-mm."
came one time,
Saw it all.
and then I
Remember it. Saw
tried.
everything.
He's goofy. Get out of here. And I realized, my future is not in Kentucky. I started to, you know, ascertain and identify what were the lies I was believing and switching and flipping over the truth. So I come back out to Dallas, and I tell Candace, "Hey, listen, I'm trying to get well. I'm doing my part. I'm working towards it, and will you stay in the picture?" And she's like, "God already told me I'm not going anywhere." But
Mm.
I still had the thoughts like, I don't know how this is gonna play out. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna be that man at the aisle with you or someone else, but I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna give it all I have. And she was like, "I'm not going anywhere." And she just, I mean, she's a unique female in that she's more logical than emotional, and that's been so great for our marriage as we complement each other well. I'm the feeler. I used to call her the Christian thug because she wouldn't cry for anything. Until she started having babies, and she got a little
The kids
soft.
now cry a little
Kids
bit.
softened her up a
A
little
little
bit,
bit.
but her being more logical was really great for me fighting from out of that space. So this occurred in the winter of 2015, and then March 2017 is when we got married. So we got engaged
We started dating July 2016.
2016.
Got engaged December 2016.
We got
And then 3
married
months later got married
March 2017.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
very,
It was pretty quick.
very quick.
Once we
Yeah.
sooner, my daddy slowed us down.
Okay. Okay.
Ready. We were ready. I was like, we were engaged in December. We were trying to get married in January. Daddy
I
was
thought
like,
it was the book that slowed you down.
no, what? I mean, once he made his intentions clear, I was like, okay, let's go.
Let's
You
go.
know,
So,
yeah.
so Kansas. So, tell me this. So, once those intentions were clear, you didn't caught feelings. Y'all both feel like, hey, we're in this thing a little bit, and then Dak starts struggling with those anxieties and stuff like that. Where did that take you? You know what I'm saying? In terms of how do you feel like, man, I love this man, I want to be with him, but how did that impact you? What he was going through?
Um, that's a good question. I actually never thought about. um, so I'll say I'm trying to remember the order. Like, were you struggling already when we went on the date, or did it happen after?
No, the date.
So
the
the
date
date
was
you were
in
good
September, and then it started in October.
right after. I'm like, it was really close together, so I was trying to remember. So I guess for me, I was more concerned with him than me. You know, I wasn't even thinking about me. I was just more like, what does he need and how can I help? And there wasn't a lot of clarity around it. I know it got really dark. I would probably paint a darker picture than you just painted, but I mean, he, tried different medications that created different scenarios and had him, still not sleeping good. And then on top of that, added side effects from medications. He was very restless. And so just watching someone that you care about go through that and just not be themselves when you know who they are, I'm like, I just was just like, Jesus, what can I do? Like, how can I help? That was really what my focus was. And while he was in Kentucky was when I had the opportunity to date someone else that said and it was someone I had known for a while. They're like, I've always liked you, you didn't want to get that whole spill. You've been around, like you've been here, sir. You ain't whatever. And I just felt resolved. I remember I had a conversation with that guy over the phone, and I felt disgusted by the question. He asked me a question about my physical boundaries. And I remember being so like, I just felt dirty just from him even imagining and asking and trying to figure out how far he could go with me. And I remember thinking, Dex has never made me feel like that. And I had known Dex for, 6 years or so, maybe more, 6-7 years at that point. So I'm like, Dex has never made me feel like that. And so really after that, I was just like, nope, I don't want nobody, like I don't want nobody else. And whatever I can do to help him get well, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm not going anywhere. And I had a friend who asked me a very good question that I'm so glad she asked me. But she said, before we were dating, before we were serious, she said, what if this happens again? Like, what if this is something that you have to deal with again and again? And I was like, I guess we'll just deal with it as it comes. Like, I'm okay with that. But I'm glad she asked me because it gave me a resolve, even for the future, that whether it happens again or not, I'm not leaving him. I'm going to stick beside him, which ended up being something that I ended up needing to come back to 7 years later into marriage when it happened a second time. So
this episode of Couples Connect is sponsored by Just Like You Hair Care System. Introducing Just Like You Hair Care, the perfect solution for healthy, growing, moisturized hair. Our hair growth oil is enriched with essential oils like calendula, lavender, rose petals, also enriched with nourishing jojoba oil, promoting growth, reducing breakage, and restoring scalp health. Follow with our moisturizing leave-in cream to lock in hydration for smooth, manageable hair all day long. So you get to feel confident with thicker, stronger, and deeply moisturized hair. Our products are made with all natural ingredients and is designed for women or anyone who want a holistic approach to hair wellness. Shop today and experience the transformation. Just Like You Hair Care, your hair, your confidence, and your journey. The link is in the show notes. Now back to the episode. So before you go into that, how did you help Dex get out of this, or how did Dex ended up?
Oh yeah, I basically was a parrot. Okay. I had to do a couple things. One, I had to be very patient.
Mm-hmm.
The only way I was able to be patient was I was continuously prayerful. So even when I'm with him, I was praying because I was like, Lord, I am tired of saying the same thing over and over. Like, when someone's dealing with anxiety or when their thoughts are stuck on lies, they're going to repeat them. It's a lot of ruminating. It's a lot of regret. It's a lot of, I should have did this. I should have did that. I should have did this. So imagine having that type of conversation for hours every day. That's what was happening. And in my mind, because I'm in a high logic, I'm like, this don't even make sense. Like, the things that are tripping him up I'm like, this doesn't even logically make sense. And I'm trying to break it down from a logical perspective, but he's so emotionally, sensitive, and I don't want to say jacked up, but that's kind of what's happening.
It's vulnerable.
Yeah, vulnerable. That's a better word. He can't even process logic. So I just was praying for patience so I could listen, because they have to get it out. That is a part of the process of getting better, is making space for that person to be heard. So I would have to be quiet, even if this was the 20th time he has said this irrational thought. It's like, listen every time like it's the first time. Listen every time like it's the first time, because for him it feels like the first time every time.
Every time.
So that was a big deal, of just listening, being patient. And then in moments where I could tell it was safe to say something, I would just insert truth. Well, no, the Bible says this. God is not like that. I don't know, if God is good, why would he do that? Or if God is who he says he is. So either the Bible is true or what you're saying is true. Which one are you going to, so I just combating the lies. I recorded, because I couldn't be with him every day, all day. We weren't married. We weren't living together or anything like that. I recorded, like, I guess you could call them affirmations and scriptures. And I put some songs on an iPod and I just gave it to him. And I was like, play this whenever, because I couldn't be with him all the time. But that way he could at least be getting truth, spoken into his mind all the time, even when I wasn't.
Good. So good. You were doing things for him that he really needed in that moment that people wouldn't even think to do. I mean, that was amazing. So he knew he had him a good thing. You did too. So you said you knew you were going to need the same thing 7 years later.
Yeah, because he had the relapse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, he had a relapse. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So man, this is really good, because it sounds like, Dex, man, it's crazy. And I don't know if my daughter's here, but it sounds like a lot of stuff
that she's dealing with,
that our daughter's dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Hungry for God, but at the same time, like, really questions, is she doing enough? Is she worthy? And anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Mm-hmm.
But
like Kandis said, you have to constantly listen to her. She says the same thing over and over again. And like you said, you have to combat those lies with the truth and just be there to listen.
So this is so good, because it's almost like giving us revelation to things that we're dealing with right now with our daughter. So I know that the idea is that you guys was to help somebody through this podcast. Y'all are really helping us. Just know that.
Yeah.
So that's a blessing to just kind of hear your testimony, man. So anyway, what you
and it's more women you hear that talks about anxiety and the things that you've gone through. You don't hear men talk about this. So that's really good too, that you're being vulnerable enough to show that side of you and allow other people to hear that, because men deal with anxiety too.
For sure. So let's jump those 7 years ahead. What now? Everything, I'm assuming everything what maybe was a little bit under control through maybe medication and just reaffirming things in your mind. Still trying to connect with God, I'm assuming. I may, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like maybe at some point it was manageable. It seemed like you got up
the speed through.
Yeah.
Here's the
I mean, we got married, and then I was able, as soon as we got married, I got off medication.
Yeah, our wedding day was his last day on medication.
Got on that, and from 2017 through from 2017 to 2021, God blessed us a lot. He blessed us with fruitfulness relationally, fruitfulness professionally, fruitfulness, babies, all the things, a lot of growth, a lot of enjoyment, a lot of gratitude and thankfulness. Like, God's promises came true. The things that I thought would never be, realities for me, the lies that I had agreed with, the things that she was combating with truth, reminding me of truth, they actually came to fruition. And now she's my bride. Now we have kids. We're moving in a home, moving to another home, all the things.
You're bypassing some very critical things that happened that I think contributed to the to relapse.
Okay.
So first year, and this is how I like to tell our story, because year by year something happened every year. First year we got married in March. In December his dad passed away. 2 days later his grandfather, his dad's dad, passed away. So we had his dad, his grandfather, and my great grandmother all passed away our first year of marriage, kind of really close together. Year 2 of marriage, we had our first baby. My pregnancies are really hard. So in both situations, I'm not functional when I'm pregnant. I'm throwing up every day. I in both pregnancies had to go to the hospital and get back right, because I got so weak I couldn't even function. They have to give me the fluids, watch me for 3 days before I can go back home. So, and then ended up both babies having to have C-sections because just, you know.
Yeah,
babies.
I know. I've had two.
So that's year 2 and 3 were babies and crazy pregnancies. And then being pregnant with a 1-year-old, like our son was 6 months old, or 9 months, 6 months old when we got pregnant with our second. So
Y'all did not listen to the doctor.
Having a baby that young, being pregnant and sick and not functioning, he had to take care of our home. Like I couldn't cook. And I wasn't sick just first trimester. Mine was like till them babies were out of me. I had all kinds of things happening. So year 2 and 3, I just am like, those are the years of the babies, and he was really taking care of all the things that needed to happen around our house, feeding himself. That's when he learned how to cook.
I'm a beast now, y'all. I'm a beast.
Year 4 of marriage, right after I finished nursing our second child, is when we discovered I had breast cancer. And so he had to take on two kids under 2, plus me being in treatments, and I had to do the whole shebang. Like, what did I do? Everything: radiation,
40
chemo,
rounds of chemo, 30 rounds of radiation,
surgery, and then more chemo after surgery.
Bunch of ER visits.
Because my body was so sensitive to the medication. I had allergic reactions, throat closing up, rashes. Like it was really intense.
Stop driving.
Yeah, and then I started dealing with anxiety to the point where I wasn't driving, and for 3 years I was not driving more than 10 minutes past our house. So during all of this time, he's carrying and taking on the load of caring for me, caring for our kids, caring for our home, making sure everybody's got what they need. And I'm doing as much as I can from a phone with very little, energy, because I can barely walk across the room without losing my breath, because the medication was affecting my heart and my breathing and all of that. So it was a long, we had a lot of good moments, but there were also some really intense, hard times during the 7 years that he's talking about. So I finished treatments year 5, I think our 5th year of marriage, and I'm starting to rebuild, and the rebuilding process is very slow. So it took me about a year and a half to really get back kind of functional, where it's like, okay, I can go somewhere by myself again. I can breathe normally, again, and all that kind of stuff. And so pretty much I get out of all my stuff and I'm starting to rebuild and feel better. We're starting to get a little groove. And that's when his relapse ends up happening. And he takes a new job, and it wasn't good timing. It wasn't a good fit for him, for our family. And that's really what led to the relapse happening.
So Kandis, your breast cancer, because this is something, it's just happening to a lot of people, and you're young. At one time, we used to think that this was an old people disease, but we see now that it's not. Anybody in your family had breast cancer?
No, and I want to say they say the percentage is like 80 or 90%. Majority of cases are not because you have the gene or it's family.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's important. That's very important to mention that, because there are so many women, especially Black women, who don't go and get mammograms because it's not in their family. Yeah. But like you said, even for me, my mom had breast cancer. So I make sure I have my mammograms every year. And I was seeing a breast doctor. And she was telling me, because I went in there and she wanted me to have an MRI every 6 months. And I did that for a little while, but I just couldn't keep that up. But she was telling me that 80 to 90% of the people who are women who are diagnosed with breast cancer, it's not in their family. There's no family history. So I think that it's very important for people to know that just because you don't have it in your family doesn't mean that you are not at risk. So go and get a mammogram done. So when you were diagnosed, Candace, was this a shock to you? What happened to your brain?
Well, I feel like I was graciously prepared by the Lord, which is kind of Him. So the way I found it, I had just finished nursing, and any woman knows when you finish nursing, it's like you don't. What size bra do I even
Yeah.
get? So I'm going through that phase where like stuff is shrinking and blown up, and I don't know what's happening. And then I think they finally settled from the breastfeeding. And I was in the shower and my pinky just brushed across a small lump. It was really small and I noticed it and I was like, that's different. But I was on my cycle. So I thought, I'll just watch it for a week and see if it's still there. And I was on top of it because of she's like a cousin to us. But my friend, she had recently had a diagnosis. She was further ahead. So she had already gone through chemo and everything. But my mom told me that when she first felt her lump, she didn't go get it checked. And she waited and waited and it got bigger and bigger. And then it created more problems, right? So just knowing her story, I was like, I'm not gonna wait. Like I'm gonna give it a week. If it's still here, I'm gonna make me an appointment. And so I was like right on it. And so I went in and I went and made an appointment with my OB. They got me in like really quickly. And then the same day I saw them, they sent me across the hallway to get a mammogram. So I found out everything in the same day, which is not normal. Um, but the day before all that happened, on Sunday, our pastor was talking about how your life is not finished until God says, like, unless your book is finished, it's not your time. And so I felt like in service, I said, they're going to tell me I have breast cancer tomorrow.
Mm.
The Lord is telling me my book is not finished yet. And prior to that, I had already written in a journal because I was dealing with anxiety, like the high anxiety situation. And I felt like I was going to die. There were nights I would wake up in the middle of the night having panic attacks. And I had a good friend that would made herself available. She's like, any time of day, call me. So I'm calling her so I don't wake him up because I know how him getting off of his sleep pattern can send him into a thing. So I didn't want to mess up his sleep. So she just made herself available. I'm calling her 2, 3 in the morning and she's helping me with breathing exercises, trying to get me back regulated and calm because I literally thought I was going to die from the anxiety. So all of that's happening. And in the midst of that, the Lord had told me one day in quiet time, I'm not finished with you. So I wrote that down in my journal and then hear this sermon a few weeks later. And then the next day after the sermon, they confirmed we're 99% sure this is what it is, but we need to do a biopsy, just to do all of our checks and balances or whatever. And so I wasn't shocked. I wasn't shattered. I was more like prepared, I guess you could say. I was prepared for the news, but had no clue what the process was going to be. Was going to be. I wasn't prepared for the process, but I at least had that to go back to whenever I was like, I don't, because you don't know if the treatments are going to work or not, And I watched a friend of mine get diagnosed with ovarian cancer and die within 3 months. And so that had just recently happened. So I'm thinking like, I just watched a friend pass away in 3 months of finding cancer in her body. Like it could happen to anybody, and I'm not exempt, from that. And so, it was a wrestle working out that, yeah, the word that the Lord had said beforehand, and the reality of like, well, but I could be wrong, or maybe I heard wrong, or maybe like you don't know if the medicine is working for a while because you got to go through all the treatments for a while before they can check to see, is it actually working. So there's a lot of nights just, yeah, I don't even know how to explain that kind of feeling.
So Dex, your wife went to church that Sunday. Monday, your wife finds out she has breast cancer. What's going on through your mind?
Yeah, so I do want to make sure that I speak and say that it's so important for believers to be active members in a local church, because if we weren't in one, we wouldn't got that word. At the same time, like she was hearing from God and our pastor, he kept hitting home one main thing, which was the providence of God and the sovereignty of God. And we knew that nothing happens in our life until it passes through his sovereign, unchanging hand first. And so that was like, I feel like God was strengthening us, strengthening our spines and strengthening our resolve for what was upcoming. So, I remember driving to work the week we found out and thinking, she's going to have cancer. Because I felt like we had enough reprieve from the previous trials that it's time for the next one. Because trials keep us humble, they keep us dependent. That's where we grow the most, in the valley, not on the mountaintops. If you've ever been to the top of a mountain, there's no vegetation up there. All the vegetation's in the valley. And so I just kind of expected the same thing was going to happen. But the phone call came the day before Thanksgiving. And we were in our living room on the couch, and her mom was present. And it was her doctor. And when she communicated it, her mom and I, we both started tearing up. And we prayed in that moment. And I just knew it was time to serve. I had a friend of mine who the year prior, his wife went through it. And so I reached out to him. He said, man, get out that towel, get out that water basin, and get to work. It's not about you anymore, bro. You got two
Mm.
little kids. You got a bride who's going to be going through. It happened to be my first year being in school administration. So it was a lot. You going to work, being an administrator, fighting those battles, coming home, you got more battles to fight. And I mean, I just, every day, her mom or her, they would see me. I'm starting my day in the kitchen. I'm starting my day in the Word, not because I'm pious and holy, because I'm needy and dependent. And so I'm going to the text to try to get strength for each day. And with less of you, there's more of Him. And so He really gave me the grace and the ability to push through and take it a moment by moment. You really realize that He gives you, manna for the day, not manna for the month. Today's manna you have, tomorrow's you don't need yet. So just He helped me be where my feet are, be where your boots are, and be present and lock in. And so really from November to May, it was just like, no one heard me complain. No one heard me cuss. Her mom was kind of mad at me one time because she was like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm good. And she was, I think she was kind of frustrated. I think she wanted me to kind of vent or something, but God gave me strength. And I think a lot of it was probably just, I don't know, the testosterone or what, God has put in man to just get it done. But I will say this, even men are not machines. We're human beings. And so I think around June, I had one weekend where I noticed some of this anxiety from 2015 rearing its ugly head again. And her mom made a comment. Her mom said, we've been very intentional and careful in taking care of Candace, but we haven't considered taking care of her caretaker and me. And
Mm.
so, you know, that was something that I wrestled with because I wanted to be the guy. I wanted to be the man. I wanted to show up. And I think there's room for that, to be manly in positive ways for the benefit of others. But we also have to respect our own humanity. If men don't take a break, we'll eventually break, and that's what happened to me. So you go on through that for a few years. I do 3 years being an assistant principal at a school. Played a pivotal role in changing the culture there, but I was tired. I was wore out of fighting families and
Mhm.
fighting a good fight, and tired of, I think, just bearing a whole lot in the home. And so, May 2025, 2024, I made a decision to leave a school where I was an assistant principal for 3 years, to go to a school to be a principal. And I think I was just exhausted. I really needed a break, and I needed to probably not take on that role. The position was a whole lot. The systems and processes were not what I was used to, and it elevated stress, and that became stress that lasted. It was sustained stress for a whole summer, and once again, I started noticing what happened in 2015 happening again. I started losing weight. I started um, losing sleep. I'm like, Shh, this is happening all over again. And so in September, I stepped down from the position, And here we are again. I'm in that battle. And this time I'm actually having suicidal thoughts. Not because anything bad or major happened in my life. It's just really because of mental illness. And I'm lacking peace. And I'm telling her, like, if I can't get sleep, if I can't get rest, I'm done. I'm out of here. I mean, you learn when you're in this why the military uses sleep deprivation as a, interrogation tactic, because it's like the worst thing when you go days upon days upon days of being up all night. And, we're in the living room. We're in our son's bedroom, and we're on our knees and we're praying and we're calling out to God and we're singing worship music. And I'm still not getting the rest that I need. And I'm not in a good space. And I'm like, babe, I don't want to be here. So she wisely, she hides the knives. Eventually she would take my keys, and she was my prison warden for a minute. And it got really scared. And so, we're going to the doctor, and they're saying, hey, I think maybe you have maybe a history in your family of bipolar. Um, and we find out there is some family history in that. What the older generation wanted to conceal, the new generation wants to reveal, but
Mm-hmm.
um, there's that difference there. And I think older individuals thought it was best to have secrets and to not tell the family's business, even to the family. But it's actually doing a lot of harm, I think, because I would benefit more from people just humanizing themselves than trying to pretend to be strong all the time.
Yeah.
And I think people want to. I think to be a good parent, I should show this exterior of toughness and strength. When really, the strongest way to be there is admit your weakness. And so we're in the battle, and we're in the mud again, and it really gets really bad. I don't see a way out. And then one day, something that really changes. I'm in my son's bedroom. He's 5 at the time, and he says, "Daddy, why are you different?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, when I was 4, you were always happy. Now that I'm 5, you're always sad." And it was like, Canelo or Ali punched me in the gut. And I remember just being like, wow, I wasn't, offended by the comment. It was like a medicinal punch. And so I remember leaving the room and saying to God, like, I don't know how to get out of this, but I'm willing to partner with you. And so the first thing he did, he gave me an idea. He said, you need to start serving other people. And so for the next 3 months, 3 to 4 days out the week, I'm going to a homeless shelter in downtown Dallas, and I'm cleaning toilets. I'm cleaning the bathroom floors, the shower floors, after every guest is going in and out and doing their thing, washing up. I'm making all the resource baskets and giving it to the guys. And I'm talking to the guys, and I've really grown a lot of empathy towards them. It's been said without proximity, there can be no empathy. But in this case, there was proximity, because now I'm battling what some of these guys are battling, and so my empathy for them, grew through the roof. And so God would kind of use that, I say, to reorient me to other people. One of the things that sucks about anxiety and fear is it takes you deeper into yourself, and that is the worst place to be. The world will tell you that self-absorption is where joy is, but that's where oppression is. In Second Timothy, I believe it talks about, in the end times, people will be lovers of self, and then it mentions a slew of other sins, but it starts with basically selfishness. And I think a lot of times people who deal with anxiety and fear, I think sometimes they're very self-oriented and self-focused. And it makes sense, because if you're focused on yourself, but then you have real problems when life starts to life, you're going to freak out because you're so aware, like, I can't do it. I'm finite. I'm limited. I'm not strong. And of course, you're going to have these kind of battles. And so God would use serving others to reorient me to Him. And I think one of the things that also got me here that we didn't mention is, I'm just going to be real specific. I attended a men's conference at our local church a few years ago, and with good intentions, they presented me with this award. In a room of 3,000 people, they give me this award called the Comeback Man of the Year, and they're basically recognizing me, overcoming mental challenges in 2015, overcoming the death of my father, my grandfather, overcoming loving of my bride through cancer, all those things. And I appreciated it. But I think in that moment, I think people saw me through the lens of strength. And so I thought that I had to maintain that appearance. if you believe that you're liked for what you do, you got to keep on doing that thing to continue to get that acceptance. And so I thought I was liked for having it together. I thought I was liked for being strong. I thought I was liked for being this kind of like real life Superman, Captain America character. And so I started wrestling in towards, you know, spring, going into that summer that we're talking about, because I'm like, I'm not that strong. I'm not always confident. I'm not always, masculine in these great ways. And so, how do I take the mask off and tell someone like I have issues. I have things I need to grow in. I need to improve in. I need God's strength, but I believe that people are seeing me through the lens of strength. So how can I be anything other than that? And so I think all that led to my anxiety that summer, because I was fighting like I don't want to admit that I'm weak. And so God used all this to humble me and really show me the power of weakness. J.I. Packer is an author, and he says that weakness is the way. When you're full of yourself, God can't fill you. But when you're emptied of yourself, God can fill you with all of him. And I think that's why trials keep coming, to empty us of our self-reliance. Someone said that self-reliance plus self-deception leads to self-destruction. And I think I definitely experienced that in my life, trying to be strong in myself and realizing I'm not. True strength is found in admitting I'm weak and I need you to fill me. When we are weak, he is strong. And so that's what he really did. And then for me, I started pursuing, a new church. I needed to be in a new environment. Sometimes you can't heal in the place that hurt you. And I had to change the environment I was in, the ecosystem I was in, be in a place where I could just be Dex. I'm not an all-star. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a Superman. I'm just trying to be a son. And so God would use, gospel-centered teaching and preaching with a high view of God to really now reorient me to him. And they really changed my view of God, which really gave me a lot more freedom, seeing him as a father, seeing him as my dad. I'm just his son. And just trying to stay in that place, like at the foot of the cross, just needy and dependent. And, now I have more joy than ever. I have more peace than ever, more rest than ever. I think I see God more clearly than I ever have my whole life. And I know it's impacted me and the husband that I am and the dad that I am. And some would say, well, weren't you doing these amazing things in the past? And I would say, yeah, but I think I was doing it because I wanted to be perceived as that guy. I want to be perceived as strong. And I didn't do it from the heart that I needed to do it from. So maybe it was beneficial and helpful, but internally, this wasn't as healthy as it needed to be.
So tell me this, the time that you had the relapse, were you also, Kansas, going through the cancer situation? So was that happening? Okay, so you had already kind of...
I had gotten back to driving, gotten through treatments. I was working out again.
Okay.
I had hair again. Yeah, so it was like we had just come out of that season, and then
went into a whole nother season again with Dax. Wow, man, it's crazy. We've talked to a lot of people on this podcast, and the ones who shared stories about, if it was some type of sickness or illness, that it was always maybe that one of them went through, and it was the story of how the other one supported that one through their times. This is the first time we've interviewed a couple where both parties had to, they had their own struggle, they had their own battle that they had to kind of overcome and deal with. So, and to see how you guys were able to really support that, man. And man, Dex, let me just tell you something, dude. You, man, you're the way that you're rooted, man, in God's word, and convicted, by so many things that kept you on track, and to continue to pursue God the way that it seemed like you do, man. That was really, it shows that your love and your passion, man, for God. It shows that you really, you're after God's heart. And that's really big, man. And I think you said it yourself, like, if you guys weren't together, wasn't connected to God the way that you are, it probably would have been stronger battles for you guys. Something that you guys would have probably, maybe you mentioned suicide. Who knows what could happen if you didn't have that foundation, right? And also had a wife, right, who was there to kind of support you. And so man, the way that you guys went through that stuff together, man, kudos to you guys. And it's just crazy, man. Congratulations on you got the full hair, girls. I'm assuming cancer is no more. You know, Dex over there, you know, you seem like he's in good spirit. He's smiling. So through everything you guys have went through, what have you learned through everything, man? What have you learned?
I think one of the main things that our marriage communicates to other married couples is this question: how would you ever learn unconditional love if your spouse always met your conditions?
Mm.
Because we both went through times where it wasn't my preference for her to go through breast cancer, and how that impacts in so many ways, you know, relationally, physically, intimately. It wasn't her preference for me to go through this battle. Like, all these things cost us things. You know, I remember like when I went through my deal, there were certain events that we wanted to go to, weddings, birthday parties. We couldn't go because of that. You know, when she's going through her battles, it limited my freedom to do other things outside the house. But that's where you grow in unconditional love. That's where you grow in the patience, having to be patient. That's where you grow in the grace, having to extend grace. That's where you grow in the forgiveness, having to forgive. And so that would just be my encouragement. I think a lot of singles out there are trying to find people that meet all their conditions, and that's not unconditional love anyway.
No.
You know, wouldn't it make more sense that God would rig circumstances for you to maybe be with someone who's not as compatible as you want, and for circumstances to be so challenging that you would grow in unconditional love? I think that's one thing that our marriage communicates.
Wow.
For y'all to be so young and have this much knowledge and this much grit, that is just unheard of. At least I've never heard of it before. You know, you have to go through a couple decades, you know, of being married in order to have this type of fight. But it's so good to see that both of you each have this fight in you for each other and a love that you possess for each other. It was something that your son said to you. Kids are, they are the true tellers. They don't realize that they're doing what they're doing, but they always find a way to help us grow in some kind of way. And like you said, I could have gotten mad and, you know, whatever, I could have been this way, but you didn't. You took that and you went to God about it, you know, because you knew that your son realized that was something in you that had changed. We think kids don't know and understand. They do. And they are here to teach us valuable lessons. And it's good that you learned from your son. You know, he wasn't too young for you to take that and run with it. You guys are amazing. Amazing. I mean, just truly amazing. And I'm blown away by the strength that both of you have, by the knowledge and the rootness you have in God. Both of you, I'm blown away by that.
It's crazy, man, to be so young that to have experienced what you guys have gone through.
Yeah.
Kansas, what do you take from everything you guys have gone through? You know, what have you learned?
Well, I think I'm still learning, but one of the things I can say I think is so necessary is having a vibrant relationship with, we gonna say Jesus, because I don't know what these other guys can
The
do.
universe.
I don't know what these other situations, I don't know where they're gonna lead you, probably
Right.
down a destruction. Try them if you want to, but I'm telling you, I have known Jesus to be real, and I have known the Holy Spirit to lead and guide me in ways that I had no like earthly knowledge of. Like, so when he got to the point where he was suicidal, the Lord gave me a dream and showed me a method. And in the dream, he tried to take his life, and he did it in a way that we couldn't reverse, and he immediately regretted it. And I told him that dream, and he was like, how did I do it? And the Holy Spirit was like, don't tell him, because I didn't want to give him the idea, but he did need to know that he regretted it. And so I let him know, I had this dream, you tried to take your life, you immediately regretted it, and we could not reverse it. And it was the worst. That was the worst dream I've ever had. And so I know that helped him too, because I know he was like, what do you mean I regretted it? You know, he really had to unpack that with me. But that was something from the Holy Spirit. So it was after that dream, I started doing all the stuff. And when we went to take him to to an outpatient facility to get some help. They were going through the checklist of like things to do around the house. Make sure you secure this, make sure you did this, make sure you do this. And I'm like, I already did that, I already did that, I already did that. So stuff that I didn't research. I wasn't Googling what to do when someone's suicidal. It was literally the Holy Spirit impressing upon me to do certain things. And then we go to the outpatient facility and they literally are telling me the things I've already done. And they say, well, you've already done everything we would have told you to do. You've covered all your bases. That is the power of the Holy Spirit. That's the power of walking with a living God who enters into our messes, who cares about the details of our days. And so I just encourage people to read your Bibles, to pray. And when I say pray, it's not always, because we got 2 young kids. So I understand it's hard to find like an hour to sit in a prayer room. Some people have that luxury. I'm saying find a way, learn how to communicate with God as you're going. I'm always talking to God, even while I'm doing something else. That's what a relationship is. I don't have to pause life to have a phone call with my husband. I don't have to pause life to talk to God. And so I think just learning to communicate with God, to make him truly your source for everything. People think we got to only go to him for the big things, but he really does care about the small things. And so that's really my encouragement, is just develop that day in, day out, what that means to pray without ceasing. It doesn't mean to lock yourself down and be unproductive, but it means to learn how to pray as you are going, as you're making decisions, inviting the Lord into those decisions and into that process.
Other thing I want to say too is community is crucial. Community has the power to double your joys and divide your burdens. And community was such a pivotal player in both our situations. You know, when I was down, you know, it helped her, it helped me. When she was down, it helped both of us. Like, you need those folks that are going to show up for you when you can't show up for them, because what you're going through is too much. You can't, you know, reciprocate what they're giving to you. And we're very blessed to have folk that, I mean, just came and sat in the mud with us, you know, just to listen, to come wash dishes, you know, make a meal. You know, it was different. It was unique, and you know how they, you know, helped us during your situation and my situation. They kind of tailored to what we were going through, but I don't think we come out of it without community either.
Yeah. No.
Wow.
And I say this, community, because I'm an extrovert and I love people. The best time to build that community is when things are good.
Yes.
Like, have fun, go to the birthday parties, kick it, go have double dates, go to dinner. Like, that's what, you know, that's the joy of it. Building community is actually fun, and it's a gift. And do it while things are good, so that when stuff gets hard, you already got your squad, because ain't nobody gonna show up for you if you always, you know, like, you meet somebody when they're going through a trial, you're not gonna show up for them the same because you don't know them. Like, you're meeting them weak. They're about to kick us out of here. Okay, thank you. But anyway, so that's it. Go have fun. Kick it with some fun.
Wow.
For sure.
I mean, we witnessed before, you know, a married couple who experienced an illness and a challenge. They didn't have community, and we saw them, you know,
Try to grasp
grasping for it, and it never happened. Because it's even when things are good, it can still be messy, still be awkward, it can still be weird and challenging, and you know, it's scary to go deep and be vulnerable. But if you're in a storm trying to get community, it's almost too late.
Mm.
You know, I was just telling Kevin this the other day about because I'm an introvert, so I'm very opposite of you, Candace. And I just started recently, as of maybe 5 years ago, started, you know, putting myself out there, talking to people, meeting people, trying to network a little bit. And I was just telling him yesterday about how it's kind of weird for me to do this, but I feel like like people need people. You know, you can't do this world alone. You just can't. You can't just do it with your spouse. You have to bring other people in, of course, people you can trust, you know. But I understand that you do need a community, and he's big on community. I wasn't before, but I'm getting into it now. So that, like you said, Dex, if something was to happen, you're not trying to scramble and find people to help and be there by your side. So that was a very great point to make. to point out. So where are you guys now? Like, what are you doing now? You know?
Yeah, where are you guys at with the, Dex, with the health situation, the mental, the anxiety? Obviously, Kansas looking healthy, got a healthy head of hair. It look like she's doing good.
Big headed, dirty hair.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus.
We're good,
Okay.
but
Okay.
we're gonna close. But I've gotten 3 years of clean skin by the grace of the Lord. Praise Jesus. My business is doing really well and keeping me busy. Our boys are busy. He's doing great.
Yeah, I'm doing great. My God has given me real inner healing. And, one of the things that God gave me was comfort. And, in 2 Corinthians, it says, blessed be the God of all comfort, who comforts us in every affliction, so we can then comfort others. And too many times, I think believers, we get comfort from God, but we allow that comfort to die with us. But that comfort should go to us and through us to comfort someone else. And so God has been sending men my way who are dealing with the same stuff. Man, Dex, I'm suicidal. I've been depressed. I've been anxious. Nobody knows. It's in the dark. And God is using me to speak life into them and speak truth, but also speak from experience, which kind of gives that truth a little bit more weight because I've been there before. So that's been really neat to see how he's turned this into a positive thing to benefit a lot of guys. And just enjoying, old productions. I'm a co-owner with her, and I've always been the unofficial street team rep, getting the word out and building partnerships because that's not really her thing. But taking a more role with that is really neat. Working and building with my bride is really special. It's really cool. And I like her take on how she leads. And just grateful to God. I mean, I thought I would not be here to meet you all, to see you all. I'm so thankful for the work he's done in me and in us to live and tell about it. So.
Wow.
You're going to be a pastor in your next life, your next.
No doubt. There were 2 prerequisites to us getting married.
Yeah.
He cannot be a pastor. And he cannot move us back to Kentucky.
Well, I don't see Kentucky, but I see a for sure.
Well, look, man. Hey, real quick, man. I know you guys got to get out of there, but once again, this was y'all bless my heart, man, my spirit today, and I appreciate you guys' transparency and honesty and sharing your story with us here, man, on the podcast. And I just feel like we could just go on and on, man, just talking to you guys. I just feel like we amongst not just friends but family. You guys we just connect with y'all spirit. Even early on when we met, I just kind of connect with you guys' spirit. So we appreciate you guys being on the podcast, sharing your story, man, and just thank you so much for your time tonight. Mm-hmm. We really, really, really do appreciate it, man. So, but we're gonna let you guys get out of here, man. So, real quick, man. Hey, man, if you enjoyed this, man. Hey, if you know someone that's dealing with some of this stuff, man. Hey, man, put it in the comments. Let people know, man, because there's help out there, man. Might even get Dex to maybe connect with you, or whatever. You never know what's gonna happen, man. But if you need some help, man, please comment, man. Let us know that's something you're going through because we want to let you know that you're not in this thing alone, baby. So we appreciate you for tuning in. Hey, man, this your boy Kev, man. This is my boo thing,
Tanya.
And this is Couples Connect, man. And we out. Peace.
I'm giving y'all hugs.